Hey everyone, and welcome. So today we're going to tune our ears to the music of poetry. We're going to explore how poets use sound, not just words, right, to create a certain rhythm, a feeling, a meaning. And we're going to start with what most people think of when they hear poetry and sound.
When most of us think about sound in poetry, this is probably what pops into your head. It's that perfect, classic rhyme. It's simple, it's neat, and let's be honest, it's a little bit cheesy.
But what if I told you that this is just scratching the surface? Seriously, the soundscape of modern poetry is so much richer, so much more complex than just finding words that match up perfectly at the end of a line.
So let's start by blowing up our definition of what rhyme even is. It's not just one thing. Think of it like a whole family of related sounds, and each one has its own unique effect.
Okay, so on one side, you've got that perfect rhyme we all know, like door and before. But a lot of contemporary poets actually try to avoid this because it can feel a little bit, sing-songy. Instead, they often go for what's called a slant rhyme. Now listen to this. Heart and star. See? They don't match perfectly, but that vowel sound is just close enough to create this really subtle, satisfying echo. It's kind of like rhyme for the modern ear. Poets can also get sneaky and hide rhymes right in the middle of a line. This is called internal rhyme, and it creates this less obvious musicality that just kind of weaves itself through the poem instead of just showing up at the end of each line like you'd expect.
Take this line from Rhonda M. Ward's poem Legacy. You can hear the N in ten and the id in hid. Now, they're not perfect rhymes, but they create this quick little percussive beat right in the middle of the thought. It's such a clever way to add rhythm without being predictable at all. Okay, so moving beyond just rhyming whole words, poets also get down to the very building blocks of language, the individual vowel and consonant sounds. You gotta think of it like a painter mixing colors on a palette to create a very specific mood.
So first up, we've got assonance. This is all about repeating vowel sounds. It's literally like painting with sound. You can create a soft, open mood with long O sounds, or a really sharp, quick feeling with short I sounds.
Let me read this one out loud so you can really hear what I'm talking about. Wow, the lawyers are making this awkward. Do you hear that repeated ah sound? It just stretches out the line and gives it this distinct, almost complaining tone. It just goes to show you the power of a single vowel.
And the flip side of assonance is consonance, which, you guessed it, is all about repeating consonant sounds. This is where poets create texture. The hard clicks of K and T sounds, or the smooth flowing hiss of an S. Just listen to the n sounds in this line. Many planes down in a night. That repetition of the n sound literally knits the whole line together, giving it this really smooth, connected flow.
Now, poets don't just repeat single sounds. They repeat entire words and phrases. And this is one of the most powerful ways to build up a rhythm and create emphasis, almost like a drum beat that carries you through the entire poem. This technique here is called anaphora, and it's when you repeat a phrase at the beginning of lines. In this bit from Joe Brainerd's I Remember, that repetition creates this incredible momentum, like a list of memories just tumbling out one after another. It really pulls you forward.
And here's the opposite. It's called epistrophe. This is where the repetition comes at the end of the lines. This famous example uses as a child to create this powerful sense of finality. Each line just lands with a definitive thud. So, while anaphora builds momentum, epistrophe really creates emphasis.
But, repetition can get even more creative and weird. Look at Anne Waldman's poem Stereo. The words here repeat irregularly, sometimes twice, sometimes not at all. This is meant to mimic the feeling of stereo sound, where you hear things from different channels creating an echo. It perfectly captures that feeling of a shared life in a marriage, where your thoughts and words are always overlapping and echoing each other.
So far, we've talked a lot about the sounds that poets make. But what about the sounds they don't make? Any musician will tell you the rests are just as important as the notes. Well, in poetry, the pauses and the silence, that's the architecture that gives the words their shape and their power.
Let's look at an example of a line break from that same poem, Legacy. The line reads, "Now and then the phone will ring and it will be," and then it just stops. That's called an enjambed line. By breaking the thought right there, the poet makes us pause, creating this tiny little cliffhanger. It will be who?
Someone from my youth. And the suspense is resolved. See, this careful control over the line break is such a powerful tool for managing our attention and creating a specific feeling. But believe it or not, the most powerful pause in this poem is still to come.
The narrator gets this just
torrent of difficult news over the phone. One death, and then another, all announced in a rush of words. I mean, how do you even respond to that?
So after that rush of heavy information, the poet gives us a full stanza break. It's a block of white space, a moment of complete silence on the page. And then, this short, stark line, "I did not." The silence before it, combined with just how short the line is, gives those three words this incredible emotional weight. It's shock, captured perfectly by the absence of sound.
So, how can you start noticing all these subtle sound effects in the poetry you read? Well, the key is to stop just reading poetry with your eyes and start listening with your ears. Here are 3 simple steps. First, and this is the big one, always try to read poems aloud. Really feel the rhythm in your mouth and in your chest. Second, actively hunt for those repeating vowel and consonant sounds we talked about. And third, pay really close attention to the pauses. Ask yourself, why did the poet break the line right here? Why is this stanza separate? What is the silence doing?
Ultimately, poetry just reminds us that sound is never neutral. From the slant rhymes that create these subtle connections to the stark silence that conveys such deep emotion, sound is a primary tool for shaping meaning. So, I guess my final question for you is this. What are the unnoticed sounds in your own life? The rhythms, the repetitions, the pauses, and what meaning might they hold?